This on Verse, and today I'm going to be doing a review of the novella Ring Shout by Djeli Clark. I received an advanced reader's copy of this book through NetGalley. Thank you to the publisher. All opinions are my own. The story takes place in the early 1900s in Georgia, where Maurice Bordeaux, a black demon slayer, is hunting down the demons who make their home in the KKK. Maurice doesn't work alone. She has the help of a few friends, Sadie and Chef. Maurice is a level-headed sword wielder, Sadie is the hothead sniper, and Chef is in charge of flirting and explosives. If you've been on my channel for a little bit, you'll know that I really enjoy Djeli Clark's novellas, and this one did not let me down. I really liked the bonds between Maurice, Sadie, and Chef, and the ties that they have with the other demon hunters. Like, they have great coordination when they're fighting, and the fight scenes are really great, but also just like when they're hanging out and like they go to a juke joint, they get up to some old-timey hot girl shit. All of them have wonderful sex lives from what is described here, even the characters that you might not be expecting. Like Maurice really said, mandatory that I get the head, no guarantees on the penetration. Historical hot girl shit. I really liked the variety of characters that we got to see. There are multiple dialects going on in the story. Maurice is the narrator, and she speaks in a generic Southern dialect. And there is a character who is Gullah, who also speaks in dialect. The Gullah was interesting. I haven't heard anyone speak it, so I can't speak on the authenticity of it. But in terms of how it was structured, it was like a meld of like Caribbean dialects and Av. It took me a second to get calibrated, but I just kind of read like one line of the dialogue aloud, and then it sort of made everything make sense. I like that Clark trusts his readers enough that they'll be able to navigate the dialogue. I feel like authors are often like steered away from dialect, or like they're scared that readers won't understand. We got to see that Ab isn't like just one language, like there's regional varieties. There's a character here who is African American and Choctaw. Her ancestors were owned by the Choctaw, and I thought that was an interesting addition. That wasn't something I learned about in school, that there were like Native American groups that owned slaves, and that some black slaves were even taken on like the Trail of Tears by their owners. So, again, just showing the variety of black experiences and like touching on a history that a lot of people might not know. And I also really liked that Clark included like historical queerness. Chef is, I'm guessing she's a lesbian. Chef's a sweet talker and a flirt. She's very good with her words. It seems like all the girls are just falling over Chef. Maurice's sword is magic. It has an interesting origin story. It basically works by calling on the spirits of those Africans in diaspora who were enslaved. And one of the spirits in the sword is a man who had a male lover. And that was just something that I appreciated, because I feel like a lot of people either act like same-gender couples didn't exist before the 1980s, or like aren't told the history. This is a story that I wasn't expecting to include folklore, but it did, and I love folklore, so I enjoyed it. Maurice's brother was really into folklore, and she has an old collection from him, and she thinks on it and references it throughout. And characters from folklore that appear in the story, there are Haints, fox spirits, there are night doctors. I haven't read a whole lot about night doctors. I feel like a lot of people hear about Bra Fox, Bra Rabbit, Anansi, so I appreciate that Clark sort of stepped outside that. The monsters in this story are also creepy, and I really like how Clark showed them through description to be the opposite of the demon hunters. So for example, something that's brought up a lot is the shout, which the demon hunters perform. It helps them make protective wards. And Maurice's magic sword that calls on spirits sings. And in contrast to that, the demons, the Ku Kluxes, have many mouths, but the sound they make is always cacophonous and described as like a hateful noise. So I just appreciated how Clark sort of shows how these groups are ideologically opposed to each other, and then bakes it into how each of these groups operate. In terms of themes in the book, there are a lot of allegories around racism and bigotry. In terms of film as propaganda, as magic, as summoning, there are also themes in here around white supremacy being invisible to the people who benefit from it, and about white people being willing to sacrifice themselves for white supremacy even when it no longer benefits them. There's also themes in here around the differences between hate and righteous anger. For me, this one was a little more intrusive towards the end. Like, I thought it was sort of well woven in until around the climax where it got pushed a lot more. Hey, editing Chloe here. I wanted to clarify my points around why the theme was a little grating for me towards the end. Basically, up until that point, I felt like this book was really speaking to Black Americans. Like, anyone could read it and take things away from it, but I felt like we were the main people who were going to get the ins and outs of the book. I felt like there was a certain like 101 level of understanding that was assumed up until that point, and like we were like going to be the main ones who were going to have that. And then when we get to this bigotry versus righteous anger plot line, it felt like it was like a really abrupt shift in who the target audience was, and that was jarring. Like, I felt like if that was a message that you needed to hear, that justice isn't the same as bigotry, I don't know how far you would have gotten in the novella to even like reach that stage. And also I felt like the story suffered as a consequence. There's a lot of plot elements tied into this theme. And just because the answer to the question, what is the difference between bigotry and righteous anger, was like so obvious to me, a lot of the plot lines that were tied up into that lacked a lot of suspense and seemed a little like outlandish. And that's why I think like this thematic line suffered. So the ending was good. There was a lot of good descriptions, a lot of clash of the supernatural, eldritch horror against eldritch horror. The demon hunters get in there and do some damage too. There's a part where I thought the battle was a little simple, but then, Clark brings in even more drama and ups the ante. So that was a lot of fun. And I'm wondering if there's going to be another book in universe similar to what happened with A Dead Djinn in Cairo, because this sword has a very specific origin story. And at the end, there's a big reveal about that origin story that I think leaves the possibility for more in this series. And also, it's just like, Maurice and Sadie and Chef are always going to have demons to fight, right? Just because one big bad is down doesn't mean that they're done forever. So this was one where I was on the edge of my seat. I always wanted to know what happened next. I was really invested in it. I loved the imagery. I loved the characters. This was a great read. I'd highly recommend it. So if you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you want to join the discussion, please comment below. Have you read anything by P. Djeli Clark before? Do you think you'll be picking this up? If you were a demon slayer, what would your weapon of choice be? And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. It's a good way to stay up to date with me and my bookish activities. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. Goodbye.